So it wasn't a classic, but I would say job done as we beat Watford 1-0 on Saturday. Alfie, I thought Watford were quite physical. They were quite well organised, and it was quite an even game until the goal.
Yeah, obviously they've got that interim manager bounce, haven't they? They went up to Hull on Tuesday, which we spoke about last weekend as being a real advantage for Saints, and they had to battle quite hard to a 0-0 draw and then play again 4 days later. But they looked all right. They're a decent team. They're going to be in and around with a shout. But for Saints, it wasn't exactly a thrilling contest. It wasn't a game that will live long in memory until that one moment in the second half, really. But Tom de Ruyter played it fairly simple. After how well we played against Stoke last weekend, there was no debate about the team. He kept the same 11, same back four. James Bree and Wellington, just sort of the way that they've transformed the look of the team at the back. And then they actually had a hand in both the goals as well, in the goal. Obviously, Wellington's ball into Cyle Larin for a Lafunu clearance. And then that Watford defender had to come off because of an injury whilst we were preparing the set piece. And then James Bree puts in one of the best deliveries of the season to Cyle Larin, who escaped his marker and scored. I think it's something like 3 minutes and 45 seconds or so into his Saints debut, but with his actual first touch as well. A lot of players score on their first appearances, but to score with the very first touch doesn't happen very often. And Cyle looked, he looked okay. He's obviously he's a big lad. He's a big guy. He's not the most mobile player, but I thought he worked hard. I thought he showed himself a bit. And we were watching his clips before the game with Joe Tessam, and Joe was quite impressed by his movement, actually, and looking at some of the goals he didn't score for Feyenoord and some of the chances that he did actually miss. He gets himself into some really good areas. So I'm encouraged by his performance. And yeah, Saints were decent again. It wasn't a brilliant game, like I said. I thought Watford had a really early chance. They could have taken the lead, but after that, I felt that it was mostly comfortable. Couple of big chances missed. Ross Stewart missed one. I think Cienza missed another. But yeah, the goal, the big moment. And 3 points. I think with 4 points off the playoffs, it's all back on.
It is all back on, yeah. Glenn, I thought Watford were kind of lacking a bit up front, maybe, but we dealt with everything they had to offer and seemed a little bit comfortable towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we struggled with was stuff of our own making, wasn't it? With Peretz took too long to clear that ball in the first half, and the guy got half a block in, and the guy who it rolled to really should have taken it first time, but he took a touch, and that enabled sort of like people to throw themselves at him and stuff like that, which meant that he missed it. So, but no, defensively, I thought we were excellent. I mean, I thought our attack looked a little bit tired. I thought Cienza looked tired. Ross Stewart is still sort of building up, having had 3 years off, and I thought we looked we looked a little bit like we were struggling up front, but defensively, I thought both teams were pretty good, and it just made for one of those games where it was kind of lacking at attacking quality both ends. But you've got to win those games, and we have not shown any ability to be able to win these tight games really all season. I know we did the one against Sheffield United, which was only a couple of weeks ago, but you've to do something in the Championship, you've got to be able to win games like that, and they got over the line. It was very unexpected the way it came about with with the big lad scoring with his first touch. But no, defensively, it's as Alfie was saying, it's not miraculous. It's obvious. You play with a back four, and you've got four solid players in there. Not only are James Bree and Wellington better defenders than the people they've replaced in the fullback roles, basically, but also, they both shot crosses, they both get tackles in, and they both win the ball in the air as well. We're suddenly looking a lot more robust defensively, and it's not so easy to score against us. As long as there's no big howlers, and of course everyone's capable of that. But over the last 4 games, they've managed to. I know Yellett played in the first one, but in the last 3 games, certainly the back four, ably helped by the centre of midfield, have done an excellent job. And but yeah, well, I thought as you say, Watford were decent in defence as well, and it's just a nice one to get over the line. But it gives me great optimism that we can carry on this run, as long as we don't start trying to be too clever again and swap players in and out and swap formations and all that sort of jazz. So yeah, keep the back four, keep those 4 players playing, and see where it takes us.
You must have had a great view of that goal, Steve, at your end, and you could almost hear above the crowd Johannes Spors just breathing a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I mean the kind of transfer sort of immediacy, I suppose, of the situation and needing someone who could replace basically our top scorer, like straight away. It does place a fair amount of pressure on kind of everybody involved, doesn't it? Johannes Spors, I would imagine, would have been sat up in the director's box, kind of fingers crossed as soon as that substitution was made. It's like, right, please let this go okay. At least give us a chance. Get him into a good position, see what happens. Damien Downes, opening game of the season, got into the position and fluffed his lines. This guy, however, a bit more experience, a bit more know-how, a bit more presence, certainly. And the thing that's noticeable actually from that corner is that basically our three biggest guys, if you take out James Bree from the equation, who's I think our third tallest player, who's obviously taking the corner. And you've then got Stevens, Harwood-Bellis, and Larin in a group of three, kind of jostling on the edge of the area. And then just as Bree's about to put the ball in, Harwood-Bellis and Stevens break off and kind of go on and they've clearly got no intention of getting anywhere near the ball. All their job is to free up space. And Larin then kind of comes around the back, kind of jostles around the centre back and basically just bundles him out of the way and just throws himself at the ball. And it's like
that's still of him just like flying through the air.
That is exactly what you want your centre forward to be doing from any cross. I mean, it's a brilliant cross as well by Bree. Absolutely on the money when he's not taken one for ages that I can remember. And obviously Cienza, as Glenn mentioned, didn't have his best game yesterday, which he's more than entitled to, given the way he's kind of dragged this team up by his bootlaces this season. Cienza's corners were like, there was one about 5 minutes before, which basically got cleared at knee height. Bree has gone over and taken one and put it right on the money. So
are we saying James Bree for corners and free kicks from now on? Would that be a fair call?
I mean, I've got no objection to that, frankly. He's proven in the past that he can take those. In the same way that if Ryan Manning was in the team, then you would expect him to be on those because you know that he has got quality in from those set piece situations. But Wellington is a better defender. He's certainly a better defender in a back four. I mean, other than cup games and suspensions and injuries and that sort of thing, I struggle to see how that defensive makeup changes from now to the end of the season, really.
I'll tell you one thing that was funny about James Bree as well is that when he came back from Charlton, I had a quick look on the social media to see what Charlton fans were saying on the official club announcement of him coming back. And one of the things they mentioned was don't let him take any corners because he's crap. It's really it was one of the decent defender, but don't let him take set pieces. So he'd obviously shanked a few while he was at Charlton. So it's somewhat ironic that in his third game back or something, he gets an assist.
He gets the assist. He's been putting some practice in. Any word on the Flynn Downes injury, Alfie? Because he's been kind of revitalised in this new role, isn't he? And the midfield, it's looking like a nice little battle for places. And whilst we've got Shay Charles waiting on the wing, you kind of don't want Flynn Downes out for too long either.
No, he's been excellent, Flynn, to be fair. In the last sort of 4 games now, he's been absolutely brilliant. One of the best players. It sounds like it's a contact issue rather than anything major, obviously. He makes quite a big sliding tackle to actually sustain the injury himself. Maybe there's an argument he probably didn't need to make the tackle, but I'm always up for that kind of challenge. But yeah, it sounds like it's a bit of a knock under the knee, bit of bruising. but on the record said it doesn't rule him out for Tuesday. Now, I would suspect that he probably won't start on Tuesday. And maybe he does. Maybe it is pure, it covers in 24 hours. But with Shea Charles there, like you said, sort of waiting, chomping at the bit for an opportunity, maybe it is one where you put him on the bench on Tuesday if he's available, and then you obviously give him the complete weekend off in the cup game, which we're all admitting probably at this point doesn't matter. There'll be 10 or 11 changes, I'd have thought. So yeah, good news. It's nothing too bad for Flynn Downes, but maybe a miss Tuesday.
And Shea Charles, Glenn, I think we were saying yesterday when we got together in the pub, he came on, but he was playing sort of slightly further forward, wasn't he?
Yeah, they seem to have made that his role now, to be more of a number 8 as opposed to a number 6, which is fine. The reshuffle when Flynn Downes went off did surprise me a little bit because Kasper Yander dropped deeper. And then, certainly that's what it looked like to me most of the time. Obviously, there was a little bit of swapping around as play developed, but that's the way it looked to me, that Kasper Yander dropped a little bit deeper, and Shea Charles was the one who was sort of like trying to progress the ball further up the pitch.
Glenn, just on that before you move on, a little nugget on that. I mean, I asked Tom Recker about it maybe a week or so ago, and he said that he thinks it's difficult for a player to come into a game and play the number 6 because of the sort of intensity and the know-how in that particular game to get up to speed immediately. He may just be saying that. He may actually just fancy Shea further forward, but that is what he said on it.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting take. I mean, it's Tonda being very clever again, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure why it would be any more difficult to play 6 or 8 if you came on as a sub. But anyway, yeah, we'll let him have that one because we won. But no, I was a little bit concerned because Flynn Downes as you said has been excellent the last 3 or 4 weeks, especially, and that the incident that he got injured in, that was what showed his value to the team, because Watford were on the break. And and his job is to stop that at source without, hopefully without taking a yellow card, and to try and win the ball back, and that is exactly what he did. And so I was a little bit concerned when he went off because the midfield was quite well contested. Watford had that guy who was giving me Ronaldinho vibes with the number 10 and the blue shirt, Imran Louza. I think he was kind of controlling the midfield for Watford, and it was a good battle between those two. But Shea Charles came on, and him and Kasper Yander between them sort of like managed to at least keep parity in there, and we didn't lose anything in midfield. So that was good. But no, I mean, Shea's had to be patient after his injury, and but I'm sure he's going to get games between now and the end of the season. And as we said before, that's what you want. If an injured player comes out of the team, no matter how good he is, if the replacements are doing well in your absence, then you've got to wait for your chance to get back in. That's the way it should work. It shouldn't be, it should be a meritocracy. It shouldn't just be, oh, he gets in because he started the season well 3 months ago. That shouldn't be how it works. And luckily at the moment we found a combination that is working.
We need to talk about Sam Edozie as well, Steve. There's a lot of chat about him in the comments. Opinions are going to be split on him being back. Some will say, useful to have him back. Others will say, well, it's that lack of end product that was frustrating us before. And I think, again, as we said yesterday, we'll probably never know quite what went on. But good option from the bench. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those things can be true at the same time in terms of being a good option to have, but also that we saw kind of the lack of end product that I guess has been kind of what we've seen from him and really throughout his time with us. He had a brief spell, didn't he, in the Championship where he looked like he'd got it together, and then he took a bit of a whack up at Norwich and was never quite the same for the rest of the season once he came back. But yeah, I think that cameo that we saw yesterday was, I mean, if you'd asked somebody to kind of jot down a few highlights before he came onto the pitch, you would have had, looks tidy, looks happy to dribble with the ball. Quite often will play the safe pass back to his fullback. Will often come inside when the run down the outside feels like the better option, and there won't be a cross into the box that goes anywhere near a teammate. So while that sounds a little bit harsh, but tick, tick, tick on all of those.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of exactly the sort of cameo I think people would have probably expected. But at the same time, given how we've had to flog our first choice wide players, Cienza and Fellows in particular, how we've had to flog them to death in the last 2 or 3 months, having any sort of viable option in those positions to just alleviate the burden and the pressure and the expectation on those two could only be a good thing. And I'm sure that once he gets a run of games, if he gets a run of games, then maybe we start to see a little bit more end product. Because we know the talent's there. I don't think there's ever really been any doubt of that. It's just whether he can put it together in sort of consistent performances and keep himself fit as well. Because we know that he's struggled with injuries throughout his time. That's really kept getting little niggles early on with us. And I mean, while the excuse of him being injured this season may not be entirely true, I think there's a reason why the club were using that as the excuse, because ultimately it's entirely believable.
Yeah.
But yeah, good to have another option there.
Interesting stuff from Tom Larin, Sam, I thought, in the build-up to the match. He said, it's a question of whether you can close the chapter and leave behind what happened. There are reasons why things happen, but it doesn't really matter. We were able to close whatever lies in the past and move on, which is interesting. I mean, it could be anything, couldn't it? I mean, we know that obviously the club wanted to sell him in the summer. They've obviously
very cryptic, isn't it?
Very cryptic, yeah. They've tried to sell him this month as well. But as Steve says, Tom Fellows and Leo Cienza on the wing, because obviously Adam Armstrong could play there as well. That was always seen as a squad option. You've only got Matsky and Samadozi as backups now, right? Jay Robinson's obviously got a bit of an injury as well. So hopefully Jay Robinson's sort of fit back. But there's absolutely a chance for Samadozi to play, a couple of minutes here and there. Maybe even starts next weekend if Jay's not back. So yeah, I think I agree with everything Steve said about Sam. But we've seen he's got something about him. It's weird that he hasn't been involved at all this season, but I think he's a decent person to have around, as long as he's training right, which I'm sure he is.
I guess the thing, Glenn, is that if he's going to continue to take off Cienza after 60 minutes, then you're going to need another player to come in. So
definitely. I mean, Joe Robinson has not been great in his cameos in the last month or so, and he's now carrying an injury. I mean, I dare say if he wasn't injured, then Sam probably wouldn't have been on the bench yesterday.
Yeah.
But with the work that we've done in the summer, with the work that we've done in January, getting rid of the likes of Ryan Fraser, that has kind of pushed Sam sort of like closer to the first team, if you like. And yeah, I mean, we're guessing. Obviously, we don't know why he wasn't involved. It does seem slightly strange from the outside that, we were playing with wing backs as well for a long time, as we all know, and Sam can do that role as well. But instead, we were, as Steve said, flogging Tom Fellows to death as a right wing back, making him cover the whole length of the pitch for 90 minutes virtually every game. And you would have thought that someone like Sam would have been an option already for that role. Yeah. But to not be involved in any 20-man squad all season, and then to suddenly, oh, here you go, you're the first sub that comes on after 60 minutes. That's a bit of a leap. I mean, you could say that the club were obviously trying to almost make his life miserable, so he wanted to sort himself out and get a move. That's kind of what it looks like. But with cryptic Tonda, that could be anything, couldn't it? I mean, and
we'll never know. And in a way, I kind of respect them for that, because I was chatting to an Ipswich fan this week, and he was talking about some of their players that went and why and what they'd allegedly done and things they'd said to people in the dressing room. And you don't want to be hearing that. So actually, do you know what? If we never find out, it's fine. And if he chips in with a couple of assists, and shall we do Player of the Week? Flynn Downes won last week. There were some nice little battles all over the pitch. Steve, who were the standouts for you this week?
Wellington for me.
Yeah,
excellent.
First name down, I think, for the vote.
And also, just there was that one incident right at the very, literally 10 seconds before the full-time whistle, where you're kind of thinking, right, if Watford lump this ball back into the box, then you're playing percentages, and it's like, oh, God knows what's going to happen. But he got there first. He puts a great block tackle in, comes away with the ball, and then just sprints down the line with no intention other than to get
And everybody was shouting in the corner, get in the
just
corner.
run to the corner flag. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
didn't look up to the right to see if anybody was making any sort of useful run into the penalty area, because it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
You're a minute or so after the allotted added on time, so yeah, you're home and dry. Just basically just don't lose the ball.
And he celebrated like he scored the winner. Brilliant.
and fair enough. I mean, his defensive work yesterday was excellent. And he was kind of required to do a little bit more attacking than usual because Cienza was a little bit quiet. Which, I mean, we give credit to Watford's defence for that. Jeffrey Ngakia, right back, played very well. I thought he was their best player. And I mean, they're the two guys they had on the right hand side. The lad wearing 42 was looked pretty handy, and Wellington dealt with him very well. I thought very few crosses got into the box. Any that did were already kind of snuffled out in terms of taking the pace off of them, so it made it easier for us to deal with. And that's what we've been crying out for that for years. It just seems such a really obvious thing to like if you don't want teams to cause chaos in your penalty area, don't let the ball get there. Seems a fairly simple concept, but apparently this is a newfangled thing that we're going for.
Signing a goalkeeper that can save shots as well. Just like,
that helps as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like a goalkeeper who could also realise when he's got a player a yard away from him as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Because that's two in two games where he's had a little bit of a brain fart when the ball's come to his feet, but got away with it both times. Still come away with clean sheets. And actually, I mean, apart from that one little screw up early doors, Herret's really had nothing to do. There's no Watford apparently had 2 shots on target. I don't remember. Not sure I remember either.
One that was literally straight down his throat. That was sort of face height, and he just
first half, yeah. I don't know what
that's the only one I can really remember. I can't remember the second one.
Yeah, I mean, we basically Watford looked quite useful. I thought basically up until they got to the penalty area, and then they didn't really have any idea how they were going to try and create a proper chance. We created the only big chances. You had the Stewart one in the first half. Well, arguably 2 Stewart ones in the first half. Really, he's a little bit unlucky the way that ball's ricocheted off either his knee or his shin or something. And then second half, Cienza and then obviously the goal. Their keeper's the only one that's had sort of proper saves to make. So I think if you're kind of arguing the toss on who deserves to win, I mean, I'm not quite sure where Charlie Daniels was coming from in saying they created loads of chances, because I mean, I don't know what game you were watching. No. The only proper chances were ones that we created this time around, and it does make a change that we're kind of finding a way to kind of get these games won. I mean, certainly a month ago, we'd have never won that game. That would have petered out to a 0-0, or we'd got mugged off and done something stupid at the other end. So, yeah, progress.
Yeah, well, it's something that Tonda said. Sorry,
psychologist.
You're
going to say about the psychologist, are you?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's something that Tonda said that was very interesting. Yesterday, he said, I sort of asked, "What's the big difference with the resilience now?" Because he'd been going on for weeks about how we need to get to a point where 1 goal is enough to win games. Obviously, done that against Sheffield United, done that again this weekend, and as Steve said, we wouldn't have done that maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. But he said they've been working with 2 psychologists, Dr. Andrea first, I believe, and then Tom Hodgins, 2 psychologists, and they've been working with Jeremy Newton, one of the coaches, and Ben Garner to deliver this comprehensive psychology program. I don't know exactly what they're doing with the players, but to be fair, you can't. It's not. Thomas says it's one of those things that you can't measure, and Glenn shakes his head. But the only thing you can measure is the outcomes, and they are winning games they wouldn't have won 2 weeks ago. So I think you've got to say, you know what, fair enough. Whatever they're doing is working.
How about the group of players and being managed properly now? And we're we're doing the bleeding obvious. I mean, none of us on here have got coaching badges, as far as I'm aware. I certainly haven't. But
I have FA level 1.
Oh, well done. So Steve with his FA level 1 that
Steve can put the cones out
or whatever. Saints have wasted the first 25 games of the season basically by buggering around with the wrong formation, We signed players to play a specific formation. We didn't use it. Our two 32-year-old managers with their spreadsheets and their textbooks have decided not to. When did doing the obvious thing become so bloody difficult? It's so frustrating. I mean, just off the top of my head, the back four, a proper goalkeeper, okay, not without its flaws, but a proper goalkeeper, back four taking responsibility, wingers higher and wider. Tom Fellow's not playing as a wing back. Cienza not playing as an inside forward. A proper target man centre forward who can, run in behind like Ross Stewart can, or be a big lump like Cyle Larin is. None of this is rocket science.
Maybe this might be what the psychologist said, Glenn. The psychologist might have come in and said, "You lot are all mental. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Just play 4-2-3-1." And they go, "Oh,
do
brilliant."
the obvious, fullbacks who can tackle and head the ball. None of it's rocket science. We've been talking about it on here, and I've watched other Saints podcasts where they've been talking about exactly the same thing. Just doing the obvious. And the only thing that I see sort of derailing us at the moment over the next few games is if we try and get too clever again and start messing around too much. So, but anyway, before I went off on that, we were talking about.
Well, no, I'm starting to think now that maybe that they just get us for it next time instead of
absolutely
for all the psychologists. We're available. We'll go and have a little chat with them.
Our rates are very reasonable.
Honestly, sometimes you do look at it and think, well, I mean, especially if you look at our results over the last 2 seasons, could any of us done any worse?
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, we're keeping clean sheets now. It's just like, it's just.
But there has also been a deliberate manipulation of the squad in the last month, and I'm sure we're going to get onto the transfer window in a bit more detail at some point, I presume. But there has been a clear manipulation of the squad to obviously reduce the size of it, to make it easier for him to manage, to get rid of players that are obviously hanging on around. Ryan Fraser, good player, good character, but he's not going to play. He's hanging on. Joe Rebo, decent player, decent character, never heard a bad word about him, but he ain't going to play. He's hanging around doing nothing. Adam Armstrong, clearly wants to move. Get rid of him. They've done a few things. Ronnie Edwards probably anchoring for a move as well, even though I'm not a massive fan of that sale. Get rid of him. We can live without him for now. So they've clearly done that, and they brought in 2 players who very specifically, they're experienced. They haven't played in the Championship. But Cyle Larin's 30 years old. He's played 250 games. Daniel Perez played for Bayern Munich. These are players who aren't going to come in, walk in here and feel that the club is too big for them, or they shouldn't be here. They're confident characters who want to talk to the group, want to lead. I think it's nice that we're doing the obvious things, like Glenn says, and this is one of the other things that we've been saying: getting proper characters in who can be important in the dressing room, and not get rid of all these ones who've been there for 4 years and have never won a game in their lives. It feels like. So yeah, I think they've done some good work in the window. I'm sure we'll get into it in a bit more detail about the things I don't like, but I think that's definitely helped as well.
Are we putting Cyle Larin down for Player of the Week as well? Then we've got Wellington. That was a
yeah.
I
mean,
James Bree as well. For sure.
Yeah, Cyle would be my choice. I mean, he was going to be used as the stick to for everyone.
He was written off before he started, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. You read the reactions in the social media when we signed him, and it was like 90% negative before they'd even seen the guy play, and for him to come on and score within 2 minutes, like you said, Johannes Spors breathing a huge sigh of relief. But it is important because we've seen how quickly it can turn, and Damien Downes became a stick to hit Johannes Spors with, rightly so, because he looked absolutely woefully out of his depth. But Cyle Larin is in effect replacing Damien Downes. He's what Damien Downes was supposed to be, the sort of like big striker that gave us a focal point and all that sort of stuff. I know he's come in at the same time as Adam Armstrong's left, so people have been comparing those two, but he's in effect coming in to replace Damien Downes. And if he had gone sort of 3 or 4 games and not done anything, then that would have been a stick to hit people with. So basically, for him to come on and score in 2 minutes, it's the Ricky Lambert for England moment, isn't it? You come on, score with your first touch with a brilliant header, and I love goals like that as well. Just no messing, cross header, bang, no messing around. Keep it simple, do the obvious.
Job done.
It's a simple game, football.
I think we've established that. Anything else on the Watford game before we move on? Any other observations?
I noticed they didn't announce the attendance, but actually I thought there was a few more in the building than I thought there was going to be at one point.
Yeah, there was. Decent turnout from Watford as well. I know it's not that far, but yeah, decent turnout from Watford. Yeah,
Good.
more so than we've been seeing from other teams recently.
Even more disappointed people going back up the M3.